Here's the truth. I thought I was untouchable, but I was just a puppet on a rich man's string. I'm 45, ex-bodyguard, used to stand between danger and the kind of people who could buy entire cities. Name's Jack, born in a nowhere town in Ohio, built like a brick wall from years of lifting and scars from years of taking hits. I worked for Titan Security, elite gigs for CEOs, diplomats, you name it. 10 years in, I thought I'd seen it all, until I met Victor Kane, tech mogul, billionaire, the kind of guy who smiled like he owned your soul. He didn't just hire me, he made me feel like I was his right hand, his confidant. That was the hook, and I bit hard. Looking back, I should have seen the cracks. Victor's world was all private jets, encrypted phones, and meetings in rooms with no windows. I stood outside, earpiece buzzing, scanning for threats, but the real danger was inside. He'd talk about moving pieces, deals that sounded like chess games with countries as pawns. I told myself it was just business, that I was there to protect, not to judge. But there was this one night, Dubai, 3 years ago, when I overheard him on a call, voice low, promising someone. It's handled. The way he said it, cold, final, made my gut twist. I brushed it off. Big mistake. The job was my life. I'd take a bullet for a client, no question. But Victor? He didn't just want protection, he wanted loyalty, the kind that blinds you. He'd slip me bonuses, call me family, invite me to dinners where I'd sit silent while he spun stories for investors. I felt special, needed. That's the twist. I wasn't guarding him, he was grooming me. For what, I didn't know yet, but it wasn't just to stand there looking tough. Every compliment, every late-night whiskey he poured me, was a leash tightening around my neck. Here's what keeps me up at night. I saw the red flags and ignored them. A guy like me, trained to spot lies, missed the biggest one. I'd watch Victor charm everyone, politicians, hackers, even his own security team, while I stood there, proud to be his shadow. But there was this look he'd give me sometimes, like he was testing me, seeing how far I'd bend. I didn't bend, I broke. I'm not proud of it. I'm sitting here, typing this in a shitty motel, door bolted, because I'm scared. Not of guns or fists, I've faced those. I'm scared of what I became for him, and what he might do if he finds me now. Looking back, those first months with Victor were like a high I didn't know I was chasing. I was 42, fresh off a string of gigs guarding diplomats who barely noticed me. Then Titan Security calls. Jack, we got a big one. Victor Kane, tech god, needs a lead guard. I'd seen his name on Forbes, some genius who built an empire on data encryption. Meeting him was like meeting a rock star. He shook my hand, looked me in the eye, said, "You're the guy I trust to keep me alive." I swear I stood taller that day. My routine was tight. Mornings, I'd check his schedule, board meetings, investor dinners, trips to places like Singapore or Zurich. I'd sweep venues, coordinate with his drivers, and brief the secondary guards, guys like Mike, who joke I was Kane's shadow. Victor's life was a machine, private jets, 5-star hotels, and staff who moved like clockwork. I'd stand by his side, scanning crowds, my Glock tucked under my jacket, feeling like I was part of something bigger. He'd toss me compliments. "Jack, you're a rock." And I ate it up. The pay was insane, enough to buy a condo in Cleveland if I wanted. I felt in control, like I'd cracked the code to the good life. But there were moments, small ones, that nagged me. Victor's meetings weren't just boardroom stuff. He'd have these off-the-books huddles, always late, always with guys who didn't match the guest list. Shady types, sharp suits, no names, eyes like sharks. I'd catch fragments. Offshore accounts, data leverage. I told myself it was above my pay grade. My job was to watch the door, not question what was behind it. Victor would pat my shoulder after, say, "Good work, Jack." And I'd feel like I belong. That was the trap. He made me feel indispensable, but I was just a cog. His inner circle didn't help. There was Claire, his assistant, all smiles but cold as ice when you crossed her. She'd hand me burner phones for secure comms, no questions allowed. Then Mike, my backup, who'd laugh off my concerns. "Man, rich people are weird. Just cash the check." I wanted to believe him. I had a rhythm, gym at dawn, coffee, then Victor's world. I'd tell myself I was on top, untouchable. But those late-night meetings, the way Victor's smile never reached his eyes, it was like a splinter in my brain. I'd lie awake, wondering what I was really protecting. I pushed it down, kept showing up, kept playing the loyal guard. Because if I stopped, what was I? Just some guy from Ohio, out of his depth, pretending he had it all figured out. Here's what happened that broke me open. It was a year into working for Victor, late 2022, some rooftop penthouse in Miami. I was 43, still riding the high of being his go-to guy. The gig was routine: secure the venue, watch the crowd, keep Victor breathing. That night, he was hosting a private investor meeting. Fancy setup, champagne, city lights, the works. I was posted by the glass doors, scanning faces, when I heard raised voices inside. Not my place to eavesdrop, but Victor's tone was sharp, not his usual charm. I edged closer, earpiece off, and caught words that hit like a punch. If he talks, we bury him. Assets are covered. My blood went cold. Who was he? What did bury mean? I saw it then, through the glass. Victor was leaning over a guy, mid-30s, sweaty, shaking, in a suit too big for him. Looked like a tech nerd, not a player. Victor's hand was on his shoulder, but it wasn't friendly, it was a vice. The guy was pleading, something about data leaks, and whistleblower. I froze. My job was to protect Victor, but this wasn't a threat from outside. This was him, threatening someone. I should have walked in, done something, anything. But I stood there, heart pounding, like a coward. The guy left, escorted by two of Victor's consultants, guys I didn't know. Their eyes said trouble. I never saw that nerd again. After, Victor found me, all smiles. "Jack, you're a rock," he said, slipping me an envelope, cash thick. "For your trouble." I took it. God help me, I took it. That's when the self-doubt crept in. Was I protecting a man or a monster? I'd spent years training to read threats, but I missed the one right in front of me. I went home, stared at that cash on my counter, and felt sick. I told myself it was just business, that I didn't know the whole story. But I couldn't unhear those words. We bury him. I started questioning everything, every late-night call, every sealed folder Claire handed me. Was I guarding Victor or enabling him? The worst part? I kept showing up. I needed the job, the money, the sense I was somebody. But that night in Miami, something in me cracked, and no amount of cash could fix it. I kept telling myself it wasn't what it looked like. That night in Miami left me rattled, but I couldn't just walk away. I was 43, with bills, a reputation, and a life tied to this job. Victor's words, "We bury him," kept looping in my head, but I shoved them down. Maybe I misheard. Maybe it was just tough talk, rich guy posturing. I'd guarded plenty of egos. They all flexed like that, right? I needed it to be nothing, because admitting it was something meant I'd been blind, complicit even. And that thought made my stomach churn. The next day, I tried talking to Claire, Victor's assistant. I caught her in the hotel lobby, all crisp blazer and fake smile. "Hey, that guy last night, he seemed scared. Everything okay?" Her eyes flicked up sharp, like I'd stepped on her turf. "Jack, you're paid to guard, not gossip," she said, voice like a blade. "It was just business. Stay in your lane." I nodded, feeling like a kid scolded for asking too many questions. But her words didn't sit right. She knew something, and I was the idiot for asking. I tried Mike, my backup guard, over beers that night. "You ever get a bad vibe from Victor's deals?" I asked, keeping it vague. He laughed, slapped my shoulder. "Man, you're overthinking. These guys play dirty, it's how they win. Keep your head down and cash the checks." I wanted to believe him. But his grin felt hollow, like he was dodging the truth too. Nobody wanted to hear me question the golden goose. I felt alone, like I was screaming into a void. The shame was the worst. I'd built my career on being the guy who sees everything, every glance, every twitch. But I'd missed this, or worse, ignored it. That nerdy guy's face, pale and pleading, haunted me. Was he okay? Did I let him walk into something awful? I told myself I didn't know enough to act, that I was just a hired gun, not a cop. But it felt like a lie. Survivor's guilt, maybe, for standing by while something dark went down. Victor called me the next week, all charm, inviting me to a yacht party. "You're my guy, Jack," he said. I smiled, played along, but inside, I was drowning. I kept showing up, kept taking his money, because if I stopped, I'd have to face the truth. I wasn't just protecting Victor. I was protecting my own denial, and it was eating me alive. The red flags kept piling up, and I couldn't unsee them anymore. It was 6 months after Miami, spring 2023, and I was 43, still Victor's shadow, still cashing his checks. But every job felt like walking through a minefield. I'd catch glimpses of things, documents marked confidential, left on his desk, names I recognized from news about data breaches. One time, in London, I saw a folder labeled Project Cerberus. Sounded like some sci-fi crap, but the way Claire snatched it when I glanced over told me it was real, and it was bad. I started noticing patterns. Victor's investors weren't just rich guys. They were fixers, guys with no LinkedIn, no trace, just cash and quiet threats. Then there was the Zurich trip. Victor had a meeting in a basement office, sketchy as hell for a billionaire. I stood guard outside, but the door was cracked. I heard him talking about rerouting funds and neutralizing exposure. A guy with a Russian accent mentioned, "The package is secure, but the source needs handling." My skin crawled. I knew handling wasn't a handshake. I wanted to barge in, demand answers, but my feet stayed glued. I was scared, not of fists or guns, but of what knowing too much would cost me. I'd seen what happened to that nerd in Miami. I didn't want to be next. Back at the hotel, I asked Claire about the meeting, casual-like. She shut me down hard. "Jack, you're not paid to think," she snapped, eyes like daggers. "Do your job." Mike wasn't any better. When I mentioned the weird vibes, he just shrugged. "Rich people, man. They're paranoid. Let it go." But I couldn't. I started noticing Victor watching me, like he was sizing me up. Once he asked, "You're loyal, right, Jack?" with that smile that didn't reach his eyes. I nodded, but my gut screamed I was on thin ice. The stakes were higher now. I wasn't just guarding a man. I was guarding secrets I didn't even understand. Every job felt heavier, like I was one wrong move from disappearing. I'd lie awake, replaying every shady meeting, every cryptic phrase. I knew Victor's world was rotten, but I hadn't done a damn thing about it. I told myself I was just doing my job, that I didn't have proof. But deep down, I knew I was scared of losing everything, my career, my stability, maybe my life. I was stuck, watching the lies stack up, and all I could do was keep playing along, hoping I'd make it out before it all blew up in my face. Here's where it all fell apart. Fall 2023, I was 43, still tethered to Victor, but the cracks in my denial were splitting wide open. We were in New York, some high-rise conference room, another investor meeting. I was outside, earpiece in, scanning the hallway, when I heard a crash, glass shattering, then a scream. Not a yell, a scream, raw and terrified. My training kicked in. I burst through the door, Glock drawn, expecting a gunman. Instead, I saw Victor, face twisted, pinning a woman to the wall. She was young, maybe 30, in a business suit, eyes wide with fear. Blood trickled from her lip. One of his consultants, a guy with dead eyes, stood nearby, holding a broken bottle. "Jack, out!" Victor barked, but I didn't move. The woman was trembling, gasping. "Please, I won't talk." My heart pounded. This wasn't business. This was violence, real and ugly. I'd seen Victor charm, manipulate, threaten, but this? This was him, unmasked, a predator. I stepped forward, gun still up, and said, "Let her go, Victor." My voice shook, but I meant it. His eyes locked on mine, cold, calculating, like he was deciding if I was worth keeping. "You don't understand the stakes, Jack," he said, releasing her. She scrambled out, sobbing. The consultant smirked, like I'd just signed my own warrant. I should have called the cops, reported it, done something. But I didn't. I stood there, gun lowering, as Victor straightened his tie, all calm again. "You're loyal, Jack. Let's keep it that way," he said, like nothing happened. He handed me another envelope, thicker than usual. I didn't take it this time. That was the moment I saw it clear. Victor wasn't just shady, he was dangerous, and I was in too deep. I'd been protecting a monster, not a man. The woman's face, her blood, her fear, it burned into me. I couldn't unsee it, couldn't keep pretending this was just a job. I walked out, legs heavy, knowing I'd crossed the line. Not by defying him, but by staying silent too long. I was complicit, and the weight of that truth crushed me. That night changed everything. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't look at myself in the mirror without seeing that woman's terrified face. I'd spent decades building a reputation as the guy who kept people safe, and here I was, standing by while Victor Kane hurt someone right in front of me. The envelope he tried to hand me sat on my hotel dresser like a poisonous snake. I didn't touch it. Blood money, that's what it was. I'd taken plenty before, but this time was different. This time, I'd seen where it came from. I started drinking that week. Not socially, not casually, hard. Whiskey for breakfast, vodka for lunch, whatever numbed the guilt crawling under my skin. Mike noticed first. "You look like shit, Jack," he said one morning, finding me hungover in the hotel gym. I wanted to tell him everything, spill it all, but the words stuck in my throat. What if he was deeper in Victor's pocket than I thought? What if telling him got me handled, like that tech nerd in Miami? Paranoia was eating me alive. Every shadow felt like a threat, every phone call a potential setup. I'd become the thing I was trained to spot, a liability. Victor acted like nothing happened. Called me the next day, all business, talking about a trip to Monaco. "Big deal brewing, Jack. Need my best man on it." His voice was smooth, confident, like he knew I'd fall in line. And the sick part? I almost did. The money, the lifestyle, the identity I'd built around being his guy, it all pulled at me. But then I'd see that woman's face, hear her pleading, and the rage would bubble up. I was trapped between who I thought I was and who I'd become. A protector who didn't protect. A guard who looked the other way. I started planning my exit. Quietly, carefully, like defusing a bomb. I knew Victor had eyes everywhere. Claire monitored communications, his consultants tracked his assets. If I just quit, walked away clean, would they let me? Or would I end up like the others who'd crossed him? I began stashing cash, small amounts from my accounts, nothing traceable. Got a burner phone, started researching places to disappear. It felt insane, like I was prepping for war against a man I'd once taken a bullet for. But that's what it had come to. I wasn't just leaving a job, I was escaping a trap I'd helped build around myself. The Monaco trip was when I knew I had to run. December 2023, yacht parties and casino lights masking the rot underneath. Victor had me coordinating security for what he called a summit, tech moguls, government officials, people whose names you'd recognize from headlines. On paper, it was about innovation and investment. In reality, it was a puppet show, and Victor held all the strings. I watched him work the room, all charm and calculated smiles, while his consultants whispered in corners about data packages and leverage points. I'd become fluent in their coded language by then. They weren't talking about business, they were talking about blackmail. The breaking point came on the second night. I was stationed outside Victor's suite when I heard him on a call, voice low but urgent. "The senator's cooperating, but we need more pressure. Use the daughter's records." My blood turned to ice. A senator's daughter? What records? I knew Victor collected data like others collected art, but this was different. This was weaponizing people's lives. I stood there, hand on my Glock, fighting the urge to kick down the door and put a bullet in him myself. But I didn't. I was still a coward, still paralyzed by the life I'd built in his shadow. That's when I found Claire's laptop. She'd left it in the security office, unlocked. Rookie mistake for someone so careful. Or maybe it wasn't a mistake. Maybe she wanted someone to see. I couldn't help myself. I clicked through her files. Jesus Christ, the things I saw. Dossiers on politicians, journalists, competitors. Personal details, financial records, photos that should have been private. And my name was there too. Jack Morrison, security asset compromise level, moderate suggested action, monitor/contain. I was just another file to them, another piece on the board. I copied what I could onto a flash drive, hands shaking. It wasn't much, Claire's security was tight, but it was enough to prove what Victor really was. A digital mob boss, using data instead of bullets. I tucked the drive into my jacket and went back to my post, trying to look normal while my world imploded. That night, I made my decision. I'd finish the Monaco job, collect my last paycheck, and disappear. Canada, maybe, or somewhere remote where Victor's reach couldn't find me. I'd been loyal to a fault, but loyalty to a monster isn't loyalty, it's complicity. And I was done being complicit. Leaving wasn't as clean as I'd hoped. You can't just ghost a man like Victor Kane. The day after Monaco, I submitted my resignation, professional, brief, thanking him for the opportunity. I thought I'd played it smart, giving 2 weeks' notice, acting like it was just time for a change. Victor's response came within an hour. Let's discuss this over dinner, Jack. The usual place. The usual place was a private club in Manhattan, the kind with no windows and one exit. My gut screamed trap, but refusing would have tipped my hand. I had to play along, act like I wasn't carrying a flash drive full of his secrets. Dinner was a performance. Victor, all concern and charm, asking if he'd done something wrong, if I needed more money, more time off. Your family, Jack, he said, cutting into his steak. Family doesn't just leave. The way he said it, with that smile that never touched his eyes, made my skin crawl. I fed him a story about burnout, wanting to try private consulting, keeping it vague and boring. He nodded along, but I could see the calculation behind his gaze. He didn't believe a word. When dessert came, he leaned in close. You know, Jack, loyalty is a two-way street. You've seen things, heard things. That creates obligations. There it was. The threat wrapped in silk. I smiled, played dumb, assured him his secrets were safe. But we both knew the game had changed. As I left the club, one of his consultants, the dead-eyed one from New York, was waiting by my car. Mr. Kane values discretion, he said, voice flat. He'd hate for anything to compromise that. I nodded, got in my car, and drove away steady, even though every instinct screamed to floor it. They were watching now, waiting for me to slip. The 2 weeks I'd promised felt like a death sentence I'd written myself. I spent those weeks paranoid as hell. My apartment felt bugged, my phone compromised. I'd catch glimpses of the same cars in my rearview, faces that lingered too long in crowds. Maybe I was losing it, seeing threats everywhere, but with Victor, paranoia was survival. I kept the flash drive on me always, tucked in a hidden pocket I'd sewn into my jacket. Started sleeping with my Glock under the pillow, something I hadn't done since my army days. Every morning, I'd show up to work, pretend everything was normal, while planning my escape route. I'd already wired money to 3 different accounts, bought a car with cash under a fake name, packed a go bag with essentials. When the 2 weeks ended, I'd vanish like smoke. My last day came faster than expected. January 15th, 2024, a date burned into my memory. I showed up to Victor's office like any other morning, but something was off. The usual security guys weren't there, replaced by new faces, hard men who looked at me like I was already a problem solved. Claire barely acknowledged me, and when she did, her smile was all teeth, no warmth. Victor wants to see you, she said, voice too sweet. One last meeting. My hand instinctively moved to my Glock, but I kept it cool. This was it. Either a farewell or a funeral. Victor's office was a fortress of glass and steel, overlooking Manhattan like he owned it. He was behind his desk, fingers steepled, that CEO pose he'd perfected. But there were 2 consultants flanking him, the dead-eyed one and another I'd never seen, built like a refrigerator. Jack, Victor started, voice smooth as oil. I'm disappointed. After everything we've built together, you're just walking away? I stood at attention, old habits dying hard. It's time for a change, Mr. Kane. Nothing personal. He laughed, but it was cold, hollow. Nothing personal? Jack, you've been inside my world for 2 years. That makes it very personal. He slid a tablet across the desk. On it was a photo, me, at my apartment, from 2 nights ago. Then another, me at the bank, withdrawing cash. Another, the car I'd bought under the fake name. My blood turned to ice. You see, Jack, he continued, I invested in you. Protected you. And this is how you repay me? Planning to run? I stayed silent, mind racing. He knew. Of course he knew. But I'm a reasonable man, he said, leaning back. Return what you took from Claire's laptop, sign a comprehensive NDA, and we part ways cleanly. You'd get to keep your life, your reputation. Refuse. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. I had seconds to decide. The flash drive burned against my chest, my only insurance against him. But his men were already moving, positioning themselves between me and the door. I'd walked into this room a free man, but I wouldn't walk out as one, not unless I played this perfectly. I don't know what you're talking about, I said, voice steady. I haven't taken anything. Victor's smile widened. Let's not insult each other's intelligence, Jack. You have 1 hour to reconsider. My men will escort you to think it over. The refrigerator consultant stepped forward, hand inside his jacket. This wasn't a negotiation anymore. It was a countdown. They put me in a conference room. No windows, one door, two guards outside. An hour to decide between my conscience and my life. I sat there, flash drive feeling like a grenade in my pocket, weighing my options. Give it back, sign their papers, and become another one of Victor's sealed files? Or keep it and, what? End up in the Hudson? I'd seen what happened to people who crossed him. But I'd also seen what he did to innocent people, and that flash drive was the only evidence. My phone was dead, they'd killed the signal. No calling for help, no backup. Just me, my Glock with 15 rounds, and a decision that would define whether I died a coward or something else. 40 minutes in, I made my choice. I wasn't giving him the drive. Not because I was brave, but because I was tired of being his dog. I'd spent 2 years enabling a monster, looking the other way, taking his money. If this was how it ended, at least I'd go out doing one right thing. I palmed the flash drive, tucked it deeper into my jacket, and started planning. 2 guards outside, probably more in the hallway. The elevator needed a keycard. The stairs were 20 feet past the guards. If I was doing this, it had to be fast, violent, and final. When the door opened at the hour mark, I was ready. The refrigerator consultant walked in, confident, reaching for my jacket. "Time's up, Jack. Hand it over." I moved faster than I had in years, grabbed his wrist, twisted, heard the snap. His scream was cut short by my elbow to his throat. The Glock was in my hand before he hit the floor, and I was through the door, catching the second guard mid-draw. 2 shots, center mass. He dropped. Alarms started wailing. I had seconds before the building locked down. I ran like hell, muscle memory from a lifetime ago kicking in. The stairs were blocked, 3 more guards rushing up. I pivoted, shot out the window at the end of the hall, and didn't think, just jumped. 3 floors down to a construction scaffold. Hit hard, rolled, kept moving. My ankle screamed, probably fractured, but adrenaline's a hell of a drug. Made it to street level, blood on my jacket, flash drive still secure. I disappeared into the Manhattan crowd, just another guy in a suit, while sirens wailed behind me. I'd burned every bridge, made myself a target, but I was alive. And I had the evidence. Now I just had to survive long enough to use it. That was 6 months ago. I've been running ever since, typing this story in shitty motels, watching every shadow. Victor Kane is still out there, still hunting me. But I've got his secrets, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough to bring him down. Or get me killed trying.